the pace of activity, where the company was going, the IPO, being part of that roadshow, going around the country, selling your company, and then becoming public, and then selling the business to somebody you'd been fiercely competing with for 90 years was amazing. You got to say, how do we still think strategically and long term and make the investments we need to make, and not just be driven by the short term stock price? Had to address the AI concerns,
right?
And we think, not just we think, there's quantum can be a piece of that.
We do have like a big potential change coming up with cybersecurity.
It's driving a lot of attention certainly from DC.
Quantum seems to be right at the right time. I mean, pushing more into quantum could really help save and help the expansion of AI become better.
Between Chattanooga and Oak Ridge, we've got 3 quantum computers, and now Huntsville's got a couple coming, one and another one coming. So in the Tennessee Valley corridor, we'll have 5 quantum computers, which is there's probably about 50 around the country.
Welcome back to another episode of Spectruss Speakeasy podcast. Today, I'm excited to have Charlie Brock with me. Charlie, welcome.
Thank you. Sam, good to be with you.
You've been very busy over the last 30, 40 years, maybe more. Right now, currently CEO of Chattanooga Quantum Collaborative, but there's a long list of businesses here that you've been part of, either co-founded, founded, worked with, from Launch Tennessee, Four Bridges Capital Advisors, worked with them, Foxmark Media. I definitely want to talk about that because it's in the ad media space.
Right.
Capital Mart Bank, going to Pinnacle Bank. I know we want to talk some about that, but where do we start here? I mean, how did you get into
I can't hold a job, clearly. I just have to keep moving around.
Right, yeah. How did you get started on this?
Oh, gosh. Well, I won't bore you. I guess just really started my professional career in the banking business, which I then came back to, 20 years later with Capital Mart Bank as a director. But it started after college. I was an English major, so I'm out there trying to find a job. But I interviewed I guess, and I got offered a job through several interviews with Third National Bank in Nashville to join their training program. Back when banks, then this is late 80s, when most banks were hiring 10 to 12 college graduates every year, putting them through a 1 to 2 year management training program, and it was fantastic. So I got hired by Third National. By the time I started in June, a month after graduating from college, it was SunTrust Bank. They'd bought them. But it was a great program, and for an English major to then get in that kind of situation, and they actually put us one semester. It was a 2-year program, and they put us through 4 MBA-level classes at Belmont.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it was an incredible program. So to get that financial grounding, and so I was a commercial loan officer, and it was great. And some of the relationships that I had at the bank, I also met my lady who became my future wife, was also in the same training program. So there was lots of wins with that training program. But really, the financial grounding that I got, the understanding, was instrumental for me, particularly later on when I started my own business career and my own, started Foxmark Media, and we're building a company, and to be able to understand balance sheets and income statements and talk to banks in a way that made them, if not totally comfortable, but at least a little bit more comfortable, like this guy knows a little bit what he's talking about on the financial side, was helpful.
Definitely.
But I started there, and then from there, I won't go into detail on so much, but moved back here in the early 90s and joined our family business, Brock Candy Company.
Okay. And that'd been around for, 90 years? And you guys?
Yeah. Almost 9 years when I joined. It started in 1906.
Okay.
Just about right here. We had a big plant that was about on this location where we are
really?
Here. Yeah.
Right downtown?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And for those listening or watching, so there's Brock Candy now, that's B-R-A-C-H, but this was Brock, B-R-O-C-K, so your last name, family name.
Yeah.
But eventually got purchased by Brock, B-R-A-C-H.
Yeah, weirdly, correct. It's just kind of funny. There was another Brock, B-R-A-C-H, as you said. They were based in Chicago, and they started 3 years ahead of us in 1903, and we were in 1906. My great-grandfather started the company. And then fast forward to 1994, they purchased us, but they agreed to move the headquarters here, which was a big deal because they were about 4 times our size. Now, as it worked out, it didn't work out that well, Chicago and Chattanooga, even though we got them to move here, and this became the corporate headquarters, and we became Brock and Brock Confections. But then over time, the BROCK name, as we all left the company over the ensuing years, they really, got rid of the BROCK brand. And then they ended up selling the company to another candy company and then private equity, and they've since closed the plant. I mean, they closed the plant we had out on Jersey Pike years ago, but now it's an automotive supply plant.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's about the same number of people, I think, working out there that we had. We had about 700 people when we sold in 94. Plus, we had a couple of our plants around the country.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What was that experience like going there? I mean, did that help set the stage, or what sort of lessons you learned from that?
Well, it was great. It was. My dad was running the company. I had 3 of my older brothers who were there. One ended up leaving a couple of years later, and then a younger brother came. But it was great to be able to work in a family business, and the business was going great guns. I was in Nashville at the time, and I was working for the bank, but the candy business was on fire, and they're growing so much. And I'm coming home, for whatever it may be, Thanksgiving or weddings or birthdays, whatever, and hearing my family and my brothers and dad talk about their excitement around this company. Yeah. It was really palpable. And I was like, I want to get back and do that and join them. And I got married. And so my wife and I moved back here, like I said, early 90s. And it was great because we were on this great trajectory. And it was a really exciting time because we had an IPO in 1993, so we went public and then got approached by the other Brock to buy us in 1994. So it was incredible learning. We went through that. The consolidation in terms of cultures did not mesh that well, and I was the last one of my family members to leave at the end of '96.
Oh wow!
So it was kind of a really incredible learning, a 5-year run for me there. But the pace of activity, where the company was going, the IPO, being part of that roadshow, going around the country, selling your company, and then becoming public, and then selling the business to somebody you'd been fiercely competing with for 90 years, was amazing.
That's being able to see the insides of how that works. This is probably 3 or 4 years ago. I was really late to it, but that Rich Dad Poor Dad book, I got into reading that. I forgot his first name, something Kawasaki, I think.
Yeah, Guy Kawasaki.
Yeah. And so I went through that book, and then I think he has 2 more after it, or 1 more, and it's kind of like versions following up to that. Like, all right, well, how do you really make more money besides just saving? And and eventually came down to, well, you need to take a company public, because how do you make a lot of money? Instead of getting insider trading, like, let's just start a company and take it public, and that's how you really make a lot of wealth. I'm like, well, yeah, duh. But how do you do that? So, but you got to see that.
Of course, the other sides of that, Sam, there's the scrutiny that comes with that, and just living quarter to quarter. It is, and you've been a family business, and you've made long-term decisions, and you've really been focused on the people of the business, and now you got analysts who are beating your door down every quarter about what's the next quarter look like, what's the year forecast look like. So it does change the not all bad by any means, but it can change the tenor of kind of the cadence of communications and of thinking, and that's the challenge that you got to say, how do we still think strategically and long term and make the investments we need to make and not just be driven by the short term stock price.
Right.
We didn't live in that world for very long because we got approached pretty quickly within a year or so after going public.
Yeah. What was that like in that year, though? Did you ever have the feeling like, oh, we made a mistake?
No. Our stock we missed earnings one quarter and our stock got hammered.
Oh, man.
But we also knew we had great things going on. We had great relationships with Walmart that was adding, super centers right and left. And we were in the middle of a lot of stuff with them. And we were doing our own brand with them. We were also doing a lot of private label. Sam Walton's still around, had launched Sam's Choice. And we were very, I won't say integral to the program, but we were from the candy side, confectionery side. We were doing a lot of work with them on Sam's Choice products.
Oh, wow.
And so we were doing great work with the wholesale clubs, not only Sam's Club, but Costco and BJ's and others. So we felt good about the business. And we were also doing private label with Hershey's and with Lifesavers. So we were making we were the first company to bring gummies to America in 1985. And then fast forward by early 90s, we had our own brand of gummies. We were also making gummies for Hershey's. They were getting into the sugar category, and for Lifesavers gummies, which was their plant was right next door to ours on Jersey Pike.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of so we felt good about where the business was going. But again, it was just a reminder back, boy, we're living in this short-term world now. You miss earnings by a tick, man, your stock can get slammed there.
Yeah, I bet so. So where'd you transition after that? That was 96. You finally left?
Yeah. And I always knew, Sam, whether the fact I loved working in the family business, but I always knew I wanted to do my own thing. And whether that's the factor of being the fourth boy in a family, like I got to have my own thing sometime, but I always knew I wanted to go be an entrepreneur. Yeah. And I was lucky because that sale gave me some capacity and say, okay, I've got some flexibility now to go do that. And I didn't have enough to say I'm going to go fund my company for whatever growth forever. But it helped me to be able to start something and have some security there, despite having 3 young kids at home. Yeah. And so I got involved a couple of years later after I left, and I was doing some consulting work, but I knew I wanted to get involved in an opportunity that I could really run with. And Hal Bowling, local, who leads Launch Chattanooga and does a great job, he'd started a company called Foxmark Media, and they were doing mall advertising.
Okay.
And he had gotten a contract with some malls with CBL just to get started with. And there were 5 malls that basically other people didn't want. We're competing with a bunch of big advertising companies. I mean, you're in the media space. Clear Channel Outdoor that had Clear Channel malls, and CBS Outdoor that had CBS malls. JC&Co, a French company that had a mall division. So you had these big outdoor companies that had mall divisions that were really very small pieces of their overall business compared to what they're doing with roadside, compared to what they're doing with airports and other things. So it gave us an opportunity to say, hey, let's go in there where we can provide some service and drive some revenue for the mall owner, maybe with some malls that the big boys don't want. Yeah. And that's where we got started. So Hal hired me. I came on very shortly thereafter. He had founded the company as a consultant to help him think about getting sales materials together. How do you go sell advertising for these malls? And then I got fired up about, hey, we joined forces here. So we did that. So I became, his co-founder, I guess, early on. And then we continued to work together and grow the company and add more malls, and ended up, again, we were able to finance it internally for a while. And then as we were continuing to grow the company and had more opportunities, and we were building this business, you're building the displays that house the advertising fixtures. So whether it's a directory display in the mall that has the map of the mall, we would build those for the malls. You're building those. So that's your CapEx. You're printing the maps, and then you have the other sides of that to sell advertising. So that's kind of how that model works. And then you can also augment that with other advertising displays, where we're doing displays on soffits as you're riding down, that you see as you're riding down escalators, or food court displays that you might put on columns, or any good location where you got a lot of foot traffic. Yeah. It's got good visibility. So we would, so that's part of the deal. You're doing the mall displays for the directories, and then you get to add other displays. But you got to raise money to spend the CapEx to go in there. Then you're selling the advertising and giving a piece of that revenue stream back to the mall owner.
Now, would you sell them the display for the map, or was that like you give it to them just for access to that space to even run ads?
Well, we're the ones running the ads. Yeah. We were just selling ad space. Okay. So you got 3-sided display. Let's say we own the fixture, we print the map, we update the map for the mall, every quarter or every 2 months, depending upon the changes to the tenant, to the retail mix. And then we're selling space to local, regional, and national advertisers who may be buying a 30-day buy because it's supporting a movie launch, in the case of the national guys, or it may be, local who wants 12-month exposure throughout the year, or just fourth quarter or whatever the case may be.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so the map then, were you giving that to them all?
Oh, yeah.
So, but it's a great idea because it pulls people to that to get direction but then on the other side, you're selling the ad space, and then you get the percentage back, right?
Yeah. So it's a pretty good deal for the mall owners. They're getting, a free display, directory display paid for. They get the map updated on a regular basis, but we're getting their space.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically that's our cost of goods to, paying their per square foot.
Yeah.
Because they're doing deals, especially tenant deals. We're one of those. We fall into that category, especially retailer deals. But it gave us space to go build a business.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Now, was CBS or Clear Channel, were they doing that same model, or is this something you all came up with?
Yeah, no, they were doing this. They were doing the same thing. It was still a fairly new business overall, and the big guys, companies that mentioned had gotten into it, but they were really focused on the major markets.
Okay.
So they were, much more focused on, New York, obviously number one. DMA, designated market area, or LA, number 2, on down to like Atlanta was number 10 then.
Okay.
They didn't care as much about the Chattanoogas and the Huntsvilles and the Birminghams of the world. But if they were doing a deal with the mall developer, they might have to take all the malls.
I got you.
Or if they could peel off some of them. So that's what happened. Clear Channel had the rest of, in this case, CBL's portfolio. And they had 26 malls at the time. Clear Channel had 21 of them, and we got these other 5 that they didn't want. And we're like, sure, let's give it a go. We'll see if we can sell some advertising and get a business going.
Yeah, and so it took off, and did you wind up
slowly but surely? That's why I've been dealing with a lot of entrepreneurs over the last really 17 years now.
Yeah,
as I've had an angel fund and then leading CO.LAB and more in the ecosystem building. But a lot of my lessons learned around entrepreneurs come from my own journey, and one of those is forecasting your business. And I remember the first year I forecast $300,000 in revenue. It's like, we got these displays. We're going to sell these ads for, $800 a month, and we're going to have them full, 60% of the year.
Yeah.
And it was a far cry from that. And that first year we did $60,000 in revenues. So when I speak to entrepreneurs and as an investor now, when they're showing me their projections, I was like, all right, cut your revenues by cut them by 2/3 and increase your expenses by, double, and let's see what that looks like.
Right.
And let's start playing, to at least maybe they're right with their initial projection, but I want to know that they've looked at it multiple ways, because you've got to look at the downside too. You got to say how we can get through that scenario when cash is tight.
Yeah.
So we went through some of those growing pains, but we grew. So we were that classic taking 4 to 5 years to get to break even.
Yeah.
But we were seeing some green shoots here, and we were picking up some other malls, and then we raised some outside capital from angel investors, and then we had a couple of other opportunities to add more mall portfolios, and we ended up signing a deal with Westfield, which was a big developer out of California that had 68 properties, including 28 in California. So all of a sudden that put us on the map with the major markets. So then we've got people, sales reps now, calling on the agencies in New York and Chicago and LA, Atlanta. We had been trying to sell them. They didn't care, quite honestly, as good a mall as Hamilton Place is with a lot of foot traffic.
Sure.
The big agencies, if it's not a top market mall, they don't care. And you can talk till you're blue in the face about the foot traffic they get versus the 15th most foot traffic mall in LA. They don't give a rip.
Yeah.
But when you get LA and you get San Fran and you get Chicago, then they need you. So it was really interesting because we got a great mix. At the time, we became known as the local mall guys that could sell locally. And then when we got the national, it was a great balance. So we became very, very profitable because we were selling a lot of ads locally year-round and keeping the spots full, keeping the revenue coming in. And then the national agency buyers would come in for the fourth quarter or come in for, as we're coming up on Memorial Day, big movie launch time, or 4th of July, or Labor Day. So it's very spot 30-day buys for the big agencies, but the locals we could sell year-round for a 12-month contract, much lower rate, but it kept money coming in.
Right.
We figured out a really good model for that, and we became, the highest fill rate in the industry. And the folks, the company that was known as, we're going to be sending the small developer checks 12 months a year, not just in the peak selling times.
Wow. I think there's something to that about, like, if you get really good when you have to run lean. Say you're in a smaller market, you get very good there, and you make your team run lean, and you get a good profit margin out of lower revenue amounts, or lower, in your case, ad buy amounts. I imagine that are spending the budget. Then when you do get into bigger markets, and it's like, wow, we were good at this in a smaller market. Now you get these huge ad budgets,
right?
I'm sure.
And they're buying 50, 100 ads at a time. We're like, this is easy. We were doing all the grunt work. We were schlepping around a media kit in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, knocking on doors. And that's what we did early days. I mean, we had 3 malls in Mississippi, Hattiesburg and Vicksburg and Meridian. And then we had 2 malls outside Knoxville, in Morristown and in Alcoa or Maryville, and they didn't get a lot of foot traffic. And so we had grown up the hard way and said, okay, we can do that. So it is funny. One of the I remember this, a dinner I had in New York. We'd hired a consultant in New York to help us get into the agencies up there. And this is early days, and we had nothing much that they cared about, right?
Yeah.
But we're trying to make our pitch and go tell them why they need to care about Hampton Place or Huntsville or wherever, or Meridian, Mississippi. And we had dinner, and he brought a friend of his, and he said, you guys, and this guy was a big media guy, worked at Warner Brothers. He said, you got to become known for something. You're trying to figure it out, and you're going to go call on tomorrow on the big ad agencies, and they're probably going to, they won't slam the door on you, but they're going to try to make the meeting short because you don't have that much for them yet. But that's okay. You're figuring it out, but become known for something. You got to be the answer to a question, or you got to be the way you finish a sentence.
Yeah.
So Foxmark Media is the company that does what? And I remember that, and it's something I say to entrepreneurs all the time, and I think about with different startups I've done now, what are we the answer to?
Yeah.
Right? And we became that answer to. Foxmark Media is a company that does local sales, and they can generate dollars for you in local B and C markets. Okay. Not just A markets. And that really played out when we're getting business with Westfield, 4 years later, and we're getting all their 68 malls. Well, they had the California, and they had New York and Chicago and all that, but they also had some malls in Cleveland, and they also had 5 malls in St. Louis. Bigger markets than Chattanooga, but still not the top 10. And they knew you're going to sell locally there. And so these are the guys to go with.
Yeah.
So it was a huge, I mean, that I remember it like it was yesterday. We're in New York with that dinner when he said that, and it really stuck with me.
Isn't it wild how certain epiphanies like that can be very simple, like the message they tell you, but it can really make a lasting effect?
Yeah.
That probably changed.
And you see it play out time and time again.
It sounds like it changed the trajectory of Foxmark Media, right?
Yeah. Well, it was a sobering comment to hear at the time because he said they're not going to care about you tomorrow, but it's also like that's the reality.
Yeah.
But we come back here. It's like we're struggling to this local, and it's hard, and we're schlepping media kits around, knocking on doors. But if we can get good at it, and we got to figure out how do we figure out the art of selling as well as the science of selling. What do the numbers need to look like? How many kits do we need to leave out? How many doors do we need to knock on? How do we follow up? So really started to get the science of selling at the local level too, and you build a business model there and then execute against that. So it was a great reminder and a great kind of calling for us to say, okay, this is what we've got to do, and how are we going to become? We knew that was the answer. We had to be known for that.
Yeah,
because that was how we're going to build our business, and it's like how do we execute against that now?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that really set you up for a lot of things to come, right? Probably the experience and having to sell and build that company, because it's probably different coming from Brock, where you guys already had Walmart and had these big players, and I mean, clearly a lot of work still going on, but then having to do this ground up and get really aggressive and figure out from kind of nothing to something. Yeah. What wound up happening? Did you sell? Or,
we sold. We were approached by an Australian-based company called UAE that was a part of $1 billion media company in Australia, and they have a mall advertising division, and they had Westfield, the company I mentioned, is based in California with the 68 malls. Yeah. They were actually an Australian-based company globally.
Oh, okay.
LA was their U.S. headquarters, right, for the 68 malls, but they had malls in Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, and the UK. So they had another 200 plus malls, around outside the U.S. This company I-Corp had all the rest of their malls.
Oh, wow.
And they're their neighbors in down the street from each other, basically in Sydney at the corporate headquarters. And so they had those relationships. And they said, we want to get the U.S. properties. And like, well, you got to go talk to this Foxmark media guy in Chattanooga. And they're probably, where in the hell is that?
Right, yeah.
And I remember they came to Chattanooga. Well, I met them at a show, and so I knew they were interested, and we kind of danced for about a year or so, and then pulled the trigger on it, and ended up selling the company to them in late 2006, December 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agreed to stay on for a year. That's part of the buyout deal, and they ended up doing a roll up in the U.S. They bought our company, bought two other companies in the U.S. so they could build a big presence here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so then you took that experience and money and everything else. And what was next? In LaunchTN, CO.LAB, Pinnacle?
No, it was a little bit of everything. I was going to take 3 years off, and I took about 6 months off. Went to Haiti. We were talking earlier about Haiti, and did some of that. I was like, I'm going to just do nonprofit philanthropic work and charitable and go to. And then I really missed the business side. So I was doing the nonprofit, and I've always done that, and will always do some of that. It's important to me, and certainly. I believe in what we're doing in this community, but I was like, I missed the business action.
Yeah.
So I got back in not too long after that and started talking to the guys at Four Bridges who had started that business. And I'd worked with a couple of them when I'd sold my company.
Okay.
So with the transaction, they had helped me as we were working through some of those, that M&A deal.
Okay.
And then they'd launched on their own. They said, why don't you come? You like doing deals. And I'd done it, I'd seen the Brock Candy deal, and then I'd done own it at Foxmark Media. And I like the deal action there. And so why don't you join us and help us get this company going and raise money and get Four Bridges going. So I was doing that. I knew I didn't want to do investment banking forever, but I loved the opportunity to look at deal flow. And I was thinking, we'll find something and I'll get back in the game as an owner sometime and buy a company.
Yeah.
Through that, then at the time, though, there was a lot going on, Sam, in terms of Chattanooga. Volkswagen, this is now 2008, 2009, and Volkswagen had announced they were coming here. Fokker Chemical had announced they were coming to Cleveland, to Charleston, Tennessee. And so we had two of the big economic development announcements in the country that year, but our entrepreneurial ecosystem was really not much. There was a few companies that were startups that had raised angel and venture money, and it was very little.
Yeah.
And I had not raised venture, but I had raised angel, and I'd gone through it 3 different times, and I had about 20 investors who had come, 18 actually, who invested in the company. I had more tell me no than yes, which is the way it usually works.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful to those folks who did invest, and they got a healthy return from that. But I started looking around, and I'm like, and this is now the great financial crisis that hit in 2008. Yeah. I'm talking to entrepreneurs. I'm in a position now to be an angel investor. They're coming to me. They got nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. Right? The doors were closing. People are worried about their assets were shrinking. So the entrepreneurs had nowhere to go. And I was one of the reasons I do what I do. I was very fortunate because my family had been here for 4 generations. We were well known in the community. I'd gone to private school here and gone to Sewanee. I had a great network. For my age at that point, and I could get in to see people.
Yeah.
Because my last name was Brock in Chattanooga. I just could. Again, I had more people tell me no than yes, but at least I could get in the doors.
Sure.
That was a huge thing. You're talking to entrepreneurs. I'm talking to entrepreneurs now in late 08, 09, and they're like, they got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And so a number of us were started talking about how do we start to change that?
Yeah.
And there was a great movement. There was a really, looking back, cool time if you look from kind of 09 through the next really 5 or 6 years of the entrepreneurial origins. Entrepreneurial origins go way back. I don't mean to say that.
Sure.
Including Brock Candy and McKee and Chattanooga Baking and Coca-Cola and Chatham and all the things.
Yeah.
But in terms of a rebirth of that, that started really in 2008, 2009 was really magical time. And so I got involved with a couple of our folks of saying, let's start an angel fund, go raise money from some of these traditional investors, and how do we get them off the sidelines and investing in entrepreneurs. So I was involved with Four Bridges, but we also started and co-founded Chattanooga Renaissance Fund, which was the community's first angel investment fund. So we ended up closing, taking in the money and doing our first close in 2011.
Okay.
Now. So that's kind of the timeline. So now we've got capital. Ted Alling and his group at Lamppost Group, they were getting their kind of hybrid venture incubator going, writing checks, providing back office services to companies. You had EPB that was building this fiber optic infrastructure that's now giving us the fastest internet in the country and the smartest electric grid in the country. CO.LAB was getting things going there, and there was just this incredible sense of a lot of kind of spinning plates around entrepreneurship and places to go and shiny objects.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool time. So I got totally immersed in all that.
Very excited. I remember it very well. I started my business in 2012 officially, but in 2008, I didn't really realize the housing market crash, how big of a deal it was. I remember reading about it, but up until that time, up until 2008, all I wanted to be was a pro cyclist. I spent my whole life, and I dropped out of computer science and programming, out of school to go race professionally and try to be a pro cyclist. And
wow, I need to interview you. So
no,
a lot more interesting than mine, probably.
No, that's about it. Definitely not more interesting. But I remember, basically lost pro contracts. A lot of pro teams folded. They didn't have any budget. And how I've been thinking about cycling. That's all I did was care about cycling. And I'd still build some websites here on the side and that sort of thing. But then around 2010, 11, 12, I remember like the Main Street renovation started going on. Was it Create Here, right? And then I guess Renaissance Fund. I started seeing businesses pop up and started getting involved with that and learning. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then whenever the gig came around or started working on that, then I don't know, a light bulb went off and I knew how to build websites. I'm like, I think there's something here. So I remember that time was very exciting in Chattanooga, and like different meetups that started happening that, I remember Create Here was kind of epicenter for a lot of it, at least my small little world.
No, that's right. That's right. Josh McManus and what they were doing and the energy you get and you feel it. It was palpable when you walk by there or you go in there. Yeah. And they had like 25, Innovate Here fellows were, running around doing things. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And actually, it was funny. CO.LAB, we ended up, because the Create Here model was they were going to have a supernova after 5 years. Yeah. So they were going to go away. So this is really cool. They're not trying to ask for funding in perpetuity. They're saying, from foundations, from corporations, from individuals, give us funding. We're going to throw stuff against the wall. We're going to see what sticks. We're going to help develop the innovation ecosystem in Chattanooga, and we're going to get more creative thinking and more actions coming out of that. So it was amazing. So CO.LAB, actually, I was kind of coming on the scene with CO.LAB there. I was a mentor and that stuff. Sheldon, Grizzle, and Enoch were starting that. And then CO.LAB ended up taking over Create Here's 501c3. Okay. So when I came in as director of CO.LAB November of 2011, that was as we were taking over for Create Here. So we took over that space, which was a great heritage to say, okay, we're stepping into this and we got to, we've got a high bar here to keep this kind of energy going. Yeah. But it was a really cool time.
And right about that time as well is when Capital Mart started up, right? Like out of the kind of a housing market crash. And
well, no, actually, we were fortunate. We actually started 2007. So we opened the doors March of 2007. So Craig Holly had gotten some of it. I guess I was one of 8 organizing directors. We helped raise $35 million. So at the time, that was the largest private capital raise for a de novo, startup bank in Tennessee's history. That was great. And we kind of started. Our timing was really good. Timing's everything. I sold my business before the financial crisis hit. Craig started in 2007 before the financial crisis. So people had their balance sheets personally. Investors were still looking good. They weren't scared yet, right? Right. And we hadn't been in the financial crisis. We'd not had been in the market and had time to make bad loans. Right. So it was a kind of a fortuitous timing as it turned out. Yeah. So that's it started, and then all the stuff happening around Main Street was just amazing. And then the Gig Tank. So as I was at a CO.LAB at this point, and then I was the first director of Gig Tank in 2012. Okay. So our first accelerator program.
And that really takes us all the way to, I mean, what you're heading up now with the Chattanooga Quantum Collaborative. I mean, that's still that's a gig tank evolved, right? Because EPB is helping head this up. And
once again, it's EPB keeps innovating, keeps adding to. I mean, a lot of our story over, as Chattanooga's as entrepreneurial innovation community over the last 15 years is tied to EPB. And this idea of kind of infrastructure as a platform for economic development, for innovation, to attract entrepreneurs, to attract capital. And it really started with, when they laid the fiber optic down, and then with the communications line around that gave us the fastest internet, and then the management, the smart grid, which is really where we have one of the most advanced energy grid systems in the country, and then to keep adding to that from a gig became 10 gigs, became 25 gigs, and now to build a quantum network on top of that is huge. Now, I didn't think I would be back around doing this again, but I'm excited to do so because I think it's an amazing opportunity for our community and for our region and state, really. And so I think that what's happening in over the last several years and how fast the technology is moving with quantum, I think Chattanooga's positioned in a way that we're not usually positioned to say, how can we be part of an emerging technology like this and be a leader nationally and even globally? That's just not, we've done great things in Chattanooga. It's a great story, right. But for most people to think we're in that kind of short list of communities with an opportunity to lead is amazing.
Yeah, so we mentioned quantum and having like a little bit of a computer science background I have and building websites. And how are we doing on time? Make sure I'm not.
Yeah,
we've been having some great conversations. I don't want to.
No, probably belabored a few of the things.
No, it's been perfect. I love all the background story on it. I mean, I geek out on learning all of this, and my curiosity always gets the best of me. But quantum, a lot of people, even myself included, feels like quantum is reverse engineering a spaceship or something because, the core of it is like a typical computer. So for those listening, a typical computer is binary. So it's basically off or on switch, a 0 or 1. But then quantum, you add off, on, and off and on. So there's kind of like a maybe. So there's kind of 3 options is like the shortest way I can explain it.
Yeah.
Which allows computation or large data sets to potentially be expedited. So sensing, there's already quantum used for sensing, it sounds like, that's being used. And in fact, in the news, there was that part where they apparently used quantum to find the airplane pilot over in, what was it, Iran or Iraq, wherever he went down?
Yeah, in Iran, yeah.
It sensed his heart rate, right?
Yeah,
heartbeat?
amazing, yeah.
From I don't know.
I'm not sure how far. I mean, hundreds of miles away. It was, it was amazing. And that is quantum sensing, the precision with which the distance that it can, and the precision with which that can enable transmission like that to pick up is just incredible.
And because they have to crunch, I imagine, a lot of data too. I don't understand how it all worked, but I imagine they're reading probably signals of all types and having to crunch it where, and this also applies to one of the big things for computing now is cryptography. And so typical 256-bit encryption it could be solved in, I don't know yet, hours, days, weeks maybe potentially. So we do have like a big potential change coming up with cybersecurity when quantum comes on. And I imagine certain states that we don't want bad actors to have access to quantum. It could be a lot of exposure.
Yeah, you're right. No, it's driving a lot of attention certainly from D.C. And from country capitals all over the world, and it's a race. And we've been behind as a country in the race. If you look at dollars spent, and we don't know exactly what China spends, but because they don't tell us everything. But if you look, McKinsey tracks all this stuff very closely, and their report they just came up with their updated annual technology monitor report. But last year's report was talking about China spent about $15 billion in quantum compared to roughly half of that for us. In Europe's a little bit more than us as well. So there's a race to catch up there.
Yeah.
Because as you talked about the cryptography, the concerns around security is driving a lot of that. So we can talk about the business application side is huge and very exciting what that can look like. But there's also a lot of fear around the vulnerabilities from what happens when quantum computing hacks into enables people to bad actors to get into your databases, into your encryption. And quantum is both the sword and the shield. in that case, because quantum computing can crack those encryptions and the RSA codes that are out there. But also, if you have your information protected on a quantum network and using QKD, let's say quantum key distribution, when that transmission is interrupted, you're immediately notified.
Yeah.
And so again, you don't go and find out 6 hours later, or even 60 minutes later, that you've been hacked and all your stuff is gone and out there in the world. So that's a huge thing, and it is amazing, Sam, with the technology continuing to push forward. A couple of years ago, they were talking about, and they call it Q-Day, if I mention that, of when, so a few years ago, it was talking early 30s, 2030 to 2032, 33. Google came out about 4 months ago with some work that they're doing, and they're saying now we're looking at 229.
Oh, wow.
We're 2026. So that's, so what can you be doing now? I mean, that's a key question that a lot of companies are asking, and the movement in the quantum space now because of that. And because of the optimization scenarios, the applications advantage that quantum can bring to companies certainly get a lot of the larger companies internationally and nationally are moving much faster in quantum than certainly when they were a year and a half or so ago.
Yeah.
So it's the pace has definitely picked up, and so that's our opportunity and our challenge here in Chattanooga to not only help keep pace with that, but to really help drive that pace, accelerate that.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I've been to some of the events that you've spoke at, and I think your organization's even helped put on or been part of in some way. Like one was at UTC, also one at MTSU, and there's a couple of things I've noticed. One, similar to AI, although AI is more prevalent right now, like it's actually happening right now, but people are still trying to wrap their head around what does it mean. But quantum's even further off. Like, how is it really going to apply? But then I find it interesting, and I think it's the right move, where you bring these high-level PhD or basically specialists from a lot of educational systems like UTC, MTSU, and of course, many more. How do you cross that divide from it being just research hypothetical into like actual use case for business? How do companies start investing? And I think a lot of people are trying to even wrap their head around, what does quantum do? Like, what is it capable of? And it seems like, potentially logistics, wayfinding, sensing. What else? How do you describe it to someone? Like, where do people even start thinking about it?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things real quick. Just your question's a great one, and there's a number of, just unpack a little bit of that. There is so much, part of our challenge right now with quantum, it's moving so fast, and yes, there's concerns around cryptography, but AI is taking up so much of the airwaves. Understandably so, because it is moving so fast. And, from even over the last 3 or 4 weeks, several of the businesses that I'm working with on some potential business applications, which will help address part of your second question here, part of your question in a second. But they're so overwhelmed with what's happening with Anthropic's, Claude's Mythos release last month, and then what it can do. And all of a sudden, when you were hearing from D.C., which has been very unregulated, that administration, I'm not making a political statement here, but they've just not been pushing hard on they've been keeping it very loosely regulated because it's all about beating China to the race. But if there's things out there now, they're just rethinking. I think there's a lot of rethinking of that in D.C. right now, where they've limited the release for Claude right now, for Mythos, and for other upcoming releases from Google, from ChatGPT, from Microsoft, et cetera. From OpenAI. And so it's an interesting time. So that's got, some of the folks we're working with who are managing big amounts of data, working on the security side, that's right now, it's hard to get their attention on quantum. Right. Is what I'm saying, because it's appropriately, they're so focused on that. Having said that, we don't, part of our message to businesses is you don't want to wake up like it happened to a lot of us in this country, and all of a sudden you have that ChatGPT moment from November, 23, I guess, or 22, and where it's like, oh my gosh, this is here. Yeah. So how do you get ahead of it in quantum? So it is a resource allocation question. Part of that's on us and other folks like us of building the case and building the story and bringing people into more quantum awareness and say, how do we start to get you more than just aware, but to quantum educated, and who in your company needs to be quantum quantum proficient,
Right.
and quantum expert. And you don't have to go hire, you don't have to have your own quantum division yet and quantum PhDs running around your business, but you better be thinking about how you're going to resource to get access to some of those people, whether at the research facilities like ORNL that we work closely with, whether at universities like UTC, UT Vandy, others, or with some of the there's application companies that are starting up. Also, the quantum compute companies like IonQ, that is our partner here in Chattanooga, they're devoting a lot of resources to have business application specialists.
Okay.
And so we're all in this discussion and kind of game of saying, how do you start to give the resources to businesses they need so that we can help them on this journey so they're not surprised? And for us in Chattanooga, and for this, why I'm doing this, how do we give our businesses early advantage?
Yeah.
And that's why EPB built the quantum network and has bought this quantum computer that will be operational over the next 4 weeks, right down the street, right around the corner from here.
That's wild.
And that we'll be the first community in the country to have both the commercially available quantum network and commercially available quantum computer. That is huge.
Yeah.
And part of that is not just so that EPB can better manage and secure and optimize their energy grid. That's number one. That's core. But it's also as an asset to this community.
Yeah.
So how do we get our businesses, in the queue to benefit first?
Yeah. So are there certain industries that you're focusing on, or you suggest, like if someone's listening, like what industries you need to focus on at first?
I'll tell you, McKinsey, which you mentioned, tracks this, and it's interesting. They did the recent updated technology monitor report they came out with. Sam, 3 years ago, with their report, talked about the quantum business itself in terms of how big the business would be, and it was between quantum computing, quantum sensing, quantum communications. And at the time, they were thinking it was $60 to $80 billion. They're now saying it's a $100 billion business by 2035. Now, the other piece of it is in terms of economic value creation from end users of quantum. Okay, so finance, logistics, energy, certainly chemicals, life science, healthcare writ large, advanced manufacturing. They've said that the business value that can be created from quantum, 3 years ago, they were saying $1 to $1.2 trillion. Their most recent report that just came out last week is saying like $1.2 to $2.7 trillion. Wow. And they're saying early movers have the opportunity to get a lot of that advantage. And it is the industries that you brought up and that I just referenced that they kind of highlight, because a lot of those have, a lot of businesses have optimization opportunities, right? Whether it's optimizing if they've got a fleet of trucks, whatever. How are they optimizing for that fleet? How are they optimizing for supply chain, for goods coming into them that they're then putting on the manufacturing floor for raw materials, that kind of thing. Healthcare. How are they optimizing for medicines that are coming in? How are they optimizing for patient flows?
Yeah.
How are you optimizing for staffing? So all a lot of optimization scenarios can be it's a little different flavor, but it's the same basic problem. What's advanced manufacturing or a healthcare concern or others? EPB is trying to optimize. How do they optimize the energy grid with more and more demands on the energy grid, more and more types of energy being coming from TVA? How do you optimize all that?
Right.
And so there's optimization's a huge, huge opportunity. I would say also in the healthcare space, drug discovery is huge, and where you're taking, the molecular working at the atomic level and subatomic level to better understand what's happening in our bodies and how medical, how they can better diagnose things earlier is a huge opportunity. And that also gets to sensing. You mentioned the sensors that are in MRI machines, which the quantum physics is part of MRI machines, but the sensors that are in there now are getting more and more precise, where MRI machines could be much more accurate and hopefully much faster.
Yeah.
So there's activity. It's really amazing the opportunities that are available that could be a really productive, amazing thing for society and for humans and for healthcare and the other things.
Right, right. You know, one thing that's definitely different with quantum versus traditional computing is there's not a content delivery network. You know, there's not really the ability to build, as of right now, there's limitations of distance that quantum computing can travel, right? So having this localized computer here in Chattanooga it's a big deal because it's not like you can just be 500 miles from here and use this computer, you know, use the quantum computer. Like you need to be locally close to it, right? Or am I?
Well, it's really if you're on the quantum networking side and the communications, if you're trying to pass information and secure that, and you're using entangled photons to do that,
Yeah.
they're highly susceptible to noise, to vibration, to those kinds of things. So as you're thinking about building a quantum network that can help provide security, the best way, the most stable way is doing that is having that network in buried fiber. Okay. So what we have here in Chattanooga. Yeah. So that's why we've got the EPB node. We've got several nodes here in town. So we can be a test bed and are for passing information securely. Now, when you start putting that fiber, aerial fiber, or you start using satellites, there's other ways you can send those signals and pass that information in those photons, but it does get a little trickier and a little less stable.
Yeah.
In the quantum, and you're exactly right, the quantum within the quantum computer, I mean, it's the stability factor, and that's one of the challenges and one of the I'd say bottlenecks right now with all the quantum computing companies. They're working through very quickly, but where do you get to what they call fault-tolerant computing, so that you have these photons that are entangled, that are not that are connected, entangled, but how do you keep them stable?
Right.
And there's a lot of all the quantum computer companies are working through that, and there's really 6 different modalities of how they're doing it. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know that there'll be one modality, and I'm not the technical guru here by any stretch. But I think there'll be a hybrid cases of modality. And also, it's not just you're going to flip a switch and go from classical to quantum. Yeah. It will be hybrid, for how long? I mean, I won't say I can't imagine where we're all quantum at sometime, but who knows? But probably not in my lifetime.
Right. Now, do you think having this quantum computer at EPB, I think it's going to bring businesses here because of having access to that? Businesses are looking to optimize.
We hope so. That's part of what we're trying to get the word out and let people know. And it's also about how do we get the business community here to say, you've got an asset here, an opportunity to get quantum advantage early that people don't have in other communities. I mean, it's not just limited to Chattanooga companies, but certainly that's what we hope to make that case. Chattanooga businesses, regional businesses, Tennessee businesses, to come here and test applications using our quantum computer here. And you've had access to quantum computing, but not on premise. So all the quantum compute companies from IBM to Microsoft to the pure plays like IonQ or D-Wave or Quantinuum, they all have cloud access. You can do that, but the on-premise quantum computing that we'll have here over the next month at EPB available is only available, for the most part, has been available at universities or at national labs. Okay. So it's kind of incredible. And you talked about, how do you start to connect networks and pass these photons over a longer distance? Yeah. It is interesting, Sam, with our advantage of what, EPB's investments are putting us in a unique position here for quantum, to help be part of leadership in quantum technology. Also having Oak Ridge National Lab 100 miles up the road is huge. Yeah. And they've been working in quantum for 10 years, and they've got incredible depth of research and researchers and quantum PhDs up there, and they're also working on, they have a network up there. Now it's just on campus. Yeah. But how do you start to connect Chattanooga and Oak Ridge, and what does that look like? And that would be a huge opportunity. They also have got a quantum computer that they've recently purchased, 2 different ones this fall. Okay. So it's kind of amazing, between Chattanooga and Oak Ridge, we've got 3 quantum computers, and now Huntsville's got a couple coming, one and another one coming. So in the Tennessee Valley corridor, we'll have 5 quantum computers, which is there's probably about 50 around the country. Oh, wow. Yeah, so it's a huge opportunity for us, and different needs. I mean, ORNL's doing research and doing other things, but how do we connect some of those activities. And we're very much part of that. Oak Ridge is one of the 5 founding members of Chattanooga Quantum Collaborative.
Okay.
So we work very close with them, and obviously EPB and Oak Ridge have a long relationship. And so we have a great opportunity in this region, particularly with Oak Ridge, with what EPB is doing in the energy space and being in the middle of the TVA footprint.
Yeah.
TVA is also one of our founding members, and they're a huge partner. And we're working on some really exciting things with them, too, in the energy space, because there's so much attention on energy right now. Not only how do you optimize it, and how do you generate it, and how to address the AI concerns.
Right.
And we think, not just we think, there's, quantum can be a piece of that as the technology continues to mature and develop, because quantum, again, as you pointed out, can run simulations, can run computations at a much faster speed, and just takes a mere pittance of the energy cost and time of regular classical computing. Yeah. So you could run some of these AI applications in quantum and not suck up all the energy. Yeah, which is interesting.
It seems like it's almost perfect timing, because there's, without a doubt, we just heard that Anthropic purchased a deal, with Elon Musk last week for Colossus to increase their compute and serving power, which they were running into massive compute issues, which that race between them and OpenAI has been fascinating, because Anthropic has over 1,000 commercial 1,000 corporations, over $1 million a year of tokens they're purchasing from them. So on that side, they've really grown, but OpenAI has 800 million weekly active users on it, so it's growing on the consumer side, but it's a lot of free plans. So their compute's been restrained. Now they got Colossus compute, which Elon's built that insane system, but power is a big part of it. How do you power it? How do you cool it? Water issues, and quantum seems to be right at the right time. Pushing more into quantum could really help save and help the expansion of AI become better, because you could draw less power. It could be cooler temperatures. We know that cooling these server rooms, that's a big, big challenge.
Yeah. Sam, you're. Well, I know you come from technical background as well, but I'm impressed.
A little bit.
You're exactly right, and it is interesting again for Tennessee to think about playing a role in that, and with what Tennessee is doing around nuclear.
Yeah,
and so we're moving into some great territory and a great position as a state to really be a leader in addressing these and coming up with some different solutions to help with energy generation.
It seems like our geography and like that corridor you're talking about, because we have the Tennessee River, we have TVA, and then we have that distance where if we could fix that photon relay issue basically across distances. And to me, the number one priority is I just want to know the aliens that they have at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. So after this, if you can tell me,
okay,
that would be great. They without a doubt have aliens. How we do it on time? I can keep going down this rabbit hole.
Well, I would love to tell you just a couple of things I'm super excited about on the quantum side right now. I'm excited about it a lot. I'm seeing certainly the top of the list is what EPB is doing in the quantum computer that we're getting ready to have. And so in the partnership with IonQ and the fact that IonQ's got 10 people here and, they've moved to Chattanooga, and some of the attention that we're getting and the outreach that we're able to do at CQC now and others to say, hey, come look at Chattanooga as an opportunity to have, expand your business or place your business here. There's a lot of international quantum companies that need to have a U.S. presence, so we want to make sure they know we're open for business on that.
Yeah.
We're also, a lot of this too, Sam, it's not, it's the hardware, it's the technology, it's also the people.
Yeah.
And that anybody that's going to be looking to grow here or expand here, move here, is going to say, well, can you provide the people that we have here? So I'm really excited about what UTC has been doing on their quantum center, and they've been very active over the last 3 years. Again, they're a founding partner of CQC. I should have said the city as well, and EPB. So those are our 5 founding partners. UTC, slow down. UTC is making some great strides in quantum, and they're working on a PhD program for quantum. Oh, wow. They've got a number of different activities happening there. They've done a certificate program for industry as well. We're working with them right now. We're actually part of an NSF planning grant that CQC is part of with UTC and EPB and CO.LAB, and we just announced CQC is helping coordinate some of the workforce development piece on that. And essentially, I'm super interested in this. Really, we've got to get a continuum of activities from K through 12 through post-secondary, through graduate, and it's not all quantum physicists. We need engineers of different types. We need software developers. We need business application specialists. We need folks who are going to be able to help marry and have quantum computing talking to classical computing. Again, it's going to be hybrid for a long time. We're going to need all levels of the business community and functions of a business for the quantum space.
Right.
So I think we can be, that's part of what we're trying to work on. A few things I'm excited about. We just announced 3 days ago, or last week, 5 days ago, I guess, the nation's first pre-apprenticeship in quantum. So CQC is working with a company called Build Within. It's a D.C. organization that works kind of with the Department of Labor, and they do apprenticeship programs. Well, we thought a pre-apprenticeship at this stage is a better fit for quantum.
Yeah.
So we just announced this. We just had the press release, and we have 10 slots that we will run. It's a summer program, starts late June, will run through late August. And it's 10 weeks. We pay a stipend for that. It's online learning. It's 5 to 7, 8 hours a week.
Okay.
So we're reaching out to employers and saying, who in your team, this is a great way to get somebody on your team. And again, they need a technical background. It would be helpful to have a technical background, but they don't need a quantum background by any stretch. And so who on your team might you put through this program, give them some flexible, again, 5 to 8 hours a week to do this, and asynchronous learning. So they go through, and we've partnered with Build Within and included. There's the curriculum we've developed, weekly curriculum. But we've got on the hardware side, IonQ is a partner on this, IBM is a partner on this, D-Wave is a partner on this. So we've got 3 of the quantum computer companies that are part of providing the curriculum. We've also got software. We got algorithm development. We've got sensing. It's really foundational quantum over this. So I'm really excited about that. Again, first in the country to do that. We're also doing a summer camp, just for a week-long camp that we will have 25 K through 12 teachers, and we're doing this in partnership with UTC and with 2 of the national labs across the country. And they're going to provide the training for a week, and we'll have a TA there, teacher assistant there, and we've got 25 teachers signed up for that. So really, it's about how do we start to educate. I was talking about the business community earlier.
Yeah.
How do we start to educate our students to say what's out there and how can we get you prepared for that? Because we need that for them to do right by them, number one, and then that also helps us attract the kind of companies and the kind of participation that we want from industry here.
That to be honest, it sounds like we needed that for AI. I didn't really have that.
That's right.
So it's nice that
that's a great point.
It's great that you all are getting ahead of it for quantum, because it's really going to help AI, really going to help expansion and scalability. Hell, I want to be involved in those programs. Both of them sound fun.
You got it. We'll save you a slide.
They both sound fun to me. Well, that's really exciting. Is there any other events coming up you'll be speaking at, or more people?
We've got an event next. Well, it's not here. It's actually in Boston next month. Quantum Tech World is a look, and I've actually not been to that particular conference. The number of quantum conferences that are happening now is just incredible versus a few years ago. But this looks like a lot of industry folks are coming in. We're going to be hosting. Chattanooga Quantum Collaborative just signed a deal this morning, actually earlier, to sponsor and do an event up there. And we've got a number of folks that are coming from Tennessee. Rick Mukherjee from UTC is speaking, along with David Wade from EPB. Okay. Tennessee will be well represented. A number of folks from Oakers National Lab. So that's one. This fall, we're working on some programming with CO.LAB for a quantum hackathon here, as well as some programming for a reverse pitch type program around quantum.
Oh, cool.
And there are also, CO.LAB is recruiting right now for a quantum accelerator program in the fall. So really we've got to get the flywheel going. And how do we do that? And we're talking about 2008, 2009, 10.
Yeah.
That's where there's always a sense of something's always happening around Main Street. And there was events going on. There was hackathons. We were doing 48-hour launch events and pitch events and those kinds of things. Part of this is how do we get that kind of sense going for quantum? And we hope this fall people will really start to feel that and see that.
I think it's already working. I mean, it has for me at least. Like I'm almost obsessed with finding all the AI and quantum events I can to go to, just to hear what's going on, because it's kind of hard to find other places for it. I mean, of course, there's resources online, but something about being in person and getting to meet these people and talk to them face to face, like yourself, I think there's a lot of value to that. So building that momentum and energy around it.
Yeah. Well, good. We'll help us spread the word.
I definitely will. Definitely will.
It is, quantum's been so abstract it is still for a lot of folks, and I totally get that. I couldn't do anything and spell quantum 2 years ago. So, but it is absolutely coming more. I won't say it's in the mainstream yet, but it is becoming part of our lexicon and part of our certainly business applications and the security side of it. So it will become more and more prevalent. So again, trying to help us, all as a community, all of us collective, we get ahead of that is really a huge opportunity and an important role for yourself, for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got some kind of closing questions here.
Okay.
Is that all right with you?
Yeah, sure.
So I know we mentioned Capital Mart to Pinnacle and talking about culture and some of the culture that you want to talk about. Walk me through some of that, because I feel like that was something that stood out to you over your years. You have like a 90 to 120 second overview.
I know, I'll be faster. No, I just think I've grown up in family business, and then coming back here and being part of that business and seeing culture was huge. And from our, the core values of our company, Brock Candy Company, they were my father and his father and probably his grandfather before him. Just that was huge in terms of reinforcing how we went about our business and how we treated each other and how we treated our suppliers and how we treated our customers. And how we thought not just the customers like Walmart and others, but also the end buyers, the consumers, and how do we think about that in the value chain of our product, but starting with people that you're working with every day. And so that was a huge reinforcement for me and platform kind of building kind of thing. And I think I've tried to take that into companies and organizations that I've led. It's been interesting that sometimes you lose that in an M&A when you sell a company. And certainly that was a challenge with Brock and Brock. I said the Chicago culture and the Chattanooga culture didn't always mesh. And there's some great people, so I don't mean to diminish any of the people, but it was just we had a harder time putting the cultures together, I would say. When I sold my company, Foxmark Media, to a much larger company, Australian, they were great to me. I stayed longer than I had to, but still meshing those cultures from small to big company.
Yeah.
Capital Mart selling to Pinnacle is a great example. And actually, and I've given this example, the culture we had at Capital Mart was fantastic, very entrepreneurial, get it done, also giving people latitude to not just micromanaging. Pinnacle bought us in 2015. We became a $10 billion bank at Pinnacle at that time with the purchase of Capital Mart. Over the last 10 years, we've grown to $55 billion. Before this most recent merger with Synovus, tripled the employee count, and the culture is unbelievable. I mean, the Pinnacle culture of not micromanaging, go do your business, and go make things happen.
Wow.
Entrepreneurial. And it's just been in the emphasis on culture from the leadership of Pinnacle that I witnessed over the 10 years from when I came on from Capital Mart purchase, and I was a board member that rolled up to Pinnacle. To see them maintain that was just amazing. And to me, will always stick in my head saying a great example. You can do it, but damn, you got to work like heck at it every single day, especially when you're bringing new people on, which Pinnacle does actively.
Yeah.
Of how do you inculcate that culture? And so that's been a huge fun ride for me to say you've got to do that. Culture does eat software every day.
Yeah.
But sometimes we forget about that, particularly in the technology world that we're living in.
Absolutely. Now, a question that this wasn't in our notes, but a question that popped up while you're talking. Matt, previous podcast guests heard this come up time and time again. Was there a time in all these different transitions, because you've had lots of different transitions and they've been very successful, it sounds like. Was there ever a time that you were scared or nervous in between these? Just because of the change alone? Like, what, just the change would make you nervous, or is that just something?
Yeah. No, I mean, I like new things, I guess, clearly.
Yeah.
But I'm also, sometimes you do come in, have imposter syndrome. We all have that at different times in our life. And me coming into the quantum space, when I got the call from the mayor and from EPB, from David Wade a couple of years ago and said, hey, we stand this up. And I'm like, guys, I'm not. I've been around technology. I've invested in technology-enabled companies. I ran LaunchTN. We were working on commercialization activities for the state, all that. But I said, But anyway, we need a business guy, and you're going to figure out what you need to learn about quantum. But I think you always have some sense of that. I know when I was asked to come lead, I was leading CO.LAB, and I was asked to come to Nashville and lead LaunchTN. And I was also like, oh man, is it going to be it's a public-private. We've got state, it's part of our board is appointed by the governor, appointed by the Speaker of the Senate, Speaker of the House. Are they going to be micromanaging me, or am I going to be able to act like an entrepreneur? Yeah. That's always, there's no greater joy and energy than being able to be an entrepreneur in the way I think about things. And so that's always a little bit concerned when you're stepping into something that's a nonprofit.
Right.
Can you be entrepreneurial, particularly if you have public funding behind you?
Right.
What does that look like? So yeah, there's always that, a little bit of the give and take on that and trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it makes sense. All right. Lightning round.
Okay.
Rock candy or quantum computing, which is harder to explain to a 5-year-old?
Well, kids get quantum computing, and they're not overwhelmed by it because they're amazed with the mystery of it, and oh, you can exist in multiple states, and you can be connected to the universe. So it's kind of funny. The kids have their mouths open, going, "This is cool." But I will say, Brock Candy Company, the best thing when you're a first grader, which I got to do this for my birthday, unfair advantage. My birthday party, I got to take our class down to the plant right down here, and everybody got a red food bag at the time to fill up with candy. So I didn't have to explain a dang thing. I said, just go down that line right now and fill up your bag with candy corn. And
you were the coolest kid.
Cherry. Oh, yeah, for
coolest
a day.
Kid.
I was definitely, maybe a week, and then that was it.
All right, you're pitching Chattanooga to Elon Musk in an elevator. You have 10 seconds. Go.
Fastest internet in the country, best energy distribution system in the country, first commercial quantum network in the country, first commercial quantum computer in the country. Why aren't you here?
That was good. I like that.
I've thought about that before. He's over in Memphis.
Yeah.
And he's not always been the biggest. A few years ago, we didn't have the greatest things to say about quantum. I've not seen what he said of late.
Yeah.
But it is interesting what he's done in Memphis. And so, again, you think about the Tennessee advantage, all the stuff happening here around quantum, all the things happening over there with XAI. How might some of that come together for advantage for our state?
Yeah. Makes sense. That was good. I like that. AI tool you can't live without right now. Is there one go-to for you?
Oh gosh, no, not really. I'm bouncing back and forth between Claude, between Gemini, between ChatGPT, trying them all out for different uses. So
same here. We really love Claude.
I was going to say,
Claude Team Plan. I have my own personal Max plan. Co-work and code on Claude. That's been our favorite. But we also use Gemini. Their image renderer is great. The new OpenAI image renderer is also really good. And Codex has been good, but we've been testing that some. I tested Perplexity for a little bit, and it's good having those citations. I tried OpenClaw, but then Claude cut it off. So I'm like,
right.
So it really Claude, I think, especially the fund. To me, I have to look for the funding, and it's like OpenAI, Gemini, or Google, and Anthropic are going to be the three main players, I think. The funding alone. They're evaluated at $1 trillion each, if not more. They're going to be able to do what they want to. And it's all, in my opinion, it's going to come down to bottlenecks and throttling on compute. So whoever has the most money and ability for compute is going to get the best result.
Yeah.
So that was time on that one. All right. One more, and I'll wrap up. In 2036, quantum has delivered on the hype. What changed first?
Well, I'll say what didn't happen first is people didn't have all their security hacked. Okay, and it was protected, remained protected. That's huge.
Yeah.
What changed first? I'm just speaking generally. I think we started to we were able to develop faster, more accurate, much earlier detection of disease.
That would be a good thing. A really good thing.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of the AI is a big boogeyman right now, and the data centers are a big boogeyman, but it is a combination of AI and quantum and how you're going from machine learning, classical machine learning, to quantum machine learning, and it's a hybrid. But the opportunities, Sam, the potential for that, and some things we're working on in the healthcare space is just amazing, and it's not that far away.
Nice. It's really exciting. anything I missed? Anything you want to add to it?
No, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to come in and talk about what we're doing. And the story is continuing to unfold every day. So I appreciate you helping us get the word out in this exciting time to be doing this in Chattanooga.
Well, I could talk for hours about all of this. I'm so, fascinated by your experience and story, and a lot to learn from you. So I appreciate you coming in and chatting with me.
Right.
It's been great.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Charlie.